listening in tonight that
Recording in progress.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay.
we'll do
All
it.
right. So I'm going to call this. I'm sorry, Jamie. Do you have anything else?
Nope, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:07. And then the first thing I have to do is read these remote reading procedures. This is a law, so I'll just go through this as quickly as I can. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count toward quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom on a computer or mobile device, you will need to download the Zoom application at www.zoom.us and create an account or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. To join by telephone only, you will need the meeting ID. While conducting meetings remotely, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. Number one, while the board members, town staff participants, and applicants for hearings only, not general meetings, will be on video and audio, public participants will join the meeting muted and with no video feed from them. Public lines will be muted throughout the meeting to allow the board to conduct business and to eliminate background noise. For general meetings, number two, for general meetings, not hearings, and only for items under which the chair solicits public comment, members of the public participating in the Zoom meeting may submit a written question via the text Q&A feature, provided they include their full name and address for the public record. The chair reserves the right to discard comments submitted that are off topic or do not include name and address. Members of the public viewing the meeting on ECAT may submit questions in writing via email to Christina Refford, committee chair at christina@refford.com. The chair reserves the right to respond to questions during the live meeting, but may limit the time for such activities. Any questions not addressed in the meeting may be answered afterwards via email and will be incorporated into the minutes of the meeting for the public record. Number three, all votes will be by roll call. Number four, when all business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meetings, signaling the end of the meeting and the termination of the recording. All participants will be disconnected from the meeting at that time. Please note that this meeting will be recorded and televised. Okay, so that's just the formality we have to do. The second formality we need to do is review and accept the minutes that were dated August 16th, 2022. As you guys who have been in the committee for a little while will remember, we did not have a quorum for September, so there was no September meeting, which is why the August minutes need to be approved. So if anyone has any questions or could I get...
Christina, do you want to just open with a quick roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. All right, Refford here.
Stebbins here.
Atkinson here.
Drown here.
Right. And should I mention that we have two people viewing as participants or attendees? No? Okay. Okay. But welcome attendees. All right, so the minutes for August, if I could get someone to, if they're approved, if someone would please approve them and second.
Sure.
I vote we approve the minutes.
Yeah.
Second, Stebbins.
Okay, so Chris is approved and Jamie second. And then Refford, okay.
Stebbins, yes.
Atkinson, yes.
Drown, abstain.
Okay. The next bit of business we need to do is to announce the formal resignation of Robin Haverly. Robin has formally resigned with the town. This is just a formality where I announce it in public forum and just mention, she did a great job for us. She's hopeful someday that we will work again together. And, we appreciate everything she did while she was a member of the committee. Do I need to get approval, Jamie, from everyone on that? Do we need to?
No, so that has been received already by the town clerk and yeah, so it's
okay.
Christine, this is Chris. Could we get anything from, the history of what she had been working on? Because I think she had a few projects. And
she submitted her information to me for the guide that she was working on. That's what she sent to me. I think some other things that she was working on in terms of compost, I think some of that is probably just transferred to Jamie, because I think Jamie, you were the one that had a contact. So yeah, I think
But I wonder whether you could send me for the minutes
Okay.
what it was that she had been working on and saying that it's been transferred.
great.
Steve, I'm also fairly new, so some of this stuff is.
And actually, Christine, I realize it's, let's go ahead and we will do a vote to accept her resignation with regret.
Okay, Redford, yes.
Stebbins, yes.
Atkinson, yes.
Brown, yes.
Okay. And then not to bury the lead, but we do have a new member. Steve Drown is here with us. Welcome aboard. I'm very happy that you did apply. We met, Chris and I met Steve at the Harvest Fair. He came over to our table and we had a good conversation. Steve, do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself, or, any information that you think?
Sure. My wife and I have lived in Easton for approximately 35 years. 2 sons grew up in Easton, graduated from Oliver Ames, and gone on to great things. I was a original member of the Easton Recycling Committee when it was called that many years ago, and I should point out that it didn't have an agenda like you people have. I mean, congratulations to you all. Also, I did spend, I filled in for a finance committee member's unexpired term and and successfully ran for finance committee many years ago. And I just retired this past November, and I'm looking for new adventures, and hopefully this will be a great adventure.
Great.
And so I do take recycling very seriously personally, and hopefully I can help in that regard.
That's terrific. I'm glad you have a background in recycling. That is a big issue in town. And it's something we'll talk about a little bit more as we go a little further into the agenda.
Steve, welcome to the team.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Okay. One thing that I think, I'm going to review this very briefly, but I think until we have everyone on board, I don't want to get too much into a discussion about this, and I want Steve time to think about this as well before we get into a, really kind of hem and haw over the pros and cons of everything. But one thing I did talk to Jamie about fairly recently was whether or not we should change the name of the committee. And Steve, just to explain why, you've been in town for a long time, so you may remember when the Green Communities Committee originally formed, and it was to make Easton a green community, which is a state designation which comes with dollars, and it's there's a very specific specific steps the town has to take to become a green community. Several of the ones around us have also become green communities, not all of them, but you have to reach certain thresholds, you have to make certain steps, and it's a very it's kind of a step-by-step procedure that you need to do to check off all the boxes. After the committee, after Easton became a green community, the Green Communities Committee stayed in existence for a little while longer, and then it closed, and then it went dark. And when I joined 4 years ago, I didn't know it was dark. I joined the committee thinking, kind of like you, oh, this sounds interesting, I would like to join, only to find out there was no committee there was not a committee. So I had to wait almost a year to get another few people involved. And then we kind of brought the committee, breathed life back into the committee. The biggest issue I've had since we've been on the committee is that we're the Green Communities Committee. However, all the formal green communities designation and paperwork takes place at the DPW level. The DPW is the one that issues the annual reports for green communities. And most of the individual departments in town, including, the police department or town offices, they'll apply for their own grants when they're doing a project. So if they want to get, electric vehicles or change the lighting, there are a lot of grants that they'll apply for as part of a Green Communities Committee. They don't need to come to us to ask to do that. And because of that, I feel like there's certain, and then also our mission, the way our mission is spelled out, which if you don't have a copy of the mission, Stephen, I will send that to you tonight. It's on our webpage, but I feel like if we rebranded ourselves still as a, still within the same parameters of what we're doing now, but also allowed ourselves to maybe broaden our focus a little bit. A lot of what we do now, we do a lot of education to the public, and maybe just sort of create the committee how we think we could be best, how we best could help the town. You mentioned that you were on the Easton Recycling Committee. I'm not sure if that was a town, like a committee within the town, or if it was like a separate committee outside of the town, but there's a lot of procedural things and rules and things like that we have to follow as a town committee. And I feel like if we could carve ourselves our own niche outside of this Green Communities umbrella, it might allow us to do things a little differently. But I know that's not everyone shares that idea. I don't think everyone shares the idea. So I'm just speaking as someone who's been on the committee for a few years. And I feel like that sometimes we're the Green Communities Committee, but we don't really handle any of the back end stuff of the Green Communities Committee, the reporting and the making sure that we're hitting certain thresholds. That is something the DPW handles. I feel pretty strongly it should stay within the DPW because I think that is something that someone who is being paid by the town should be putting together, and not, a committee of volunteers who may or may not be here in a few years. I think we have a fair amount, volunteer groups tend to have a fair amount of churn.
Christina, may I?
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I wanted to offer for Steve that I was the con on this, that
it's kind of hard. There's only a couple of us in the committee, so it's not like it's
yeah. That I'm feeling that the idea of a Green Communities Committee is a good one. Whether it's renamed or not, that would be good. But I think our mission, as far as doing what the purpose of Green Communities was, and it was mostly energy. And there are numerous state grants that are being given all the time for LED lighting and so on and so forth. But there's also more major ones that are coming to different towns. And I sent out that notification of grants that had been received in the last year, and other communities are doing a whole lot better than we are. We're really not getting as much money as we could get. And I think one of the things that we might do, because DPW has so much else on their plate, is that this is our focus. This is what we would like to see. It's more blue sky thinking than a department that has, a lot of stuff going on. As I said, sometimes they're being distracted by other things that they must get done. And we, on the other hand, would not get distracted. And one of the things that we had been working on in the last year was trying to give them more names of different grants that they could get. And I think this is something that I can't imagine any department having a representative who is spending time to do this, that they're actually doing that. The other thing that concerns me a little bit is that DPW, I don't have a copy of last year's report. what did they say of what we had done? What's our progress? Where do we stand? And I think, that this is something that I sure hope they filed a report, but making sure the Green Communities Act, the state act, has to be maintained. We have to achieve certain things and do things by certain periods of time. And keeping that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was a concern of mine. I remember right after I became chair, I was going through some of the paperwork that was online, and I saw that one of the things for a green community to become to stay as a green community would be to file an annual report. And I had this like sinking feeling that I had been on the committee for about 2 years, and I don't remember, no, I wasn't aware that there was one. So I had spoken to, I spoke to Dave Field at the DPW, and he assured me that they do that annual report every year. So I know it exists, and I'm sure we could get a copy of last year's report. I think I'm pretty sure it's got to be public knowledge, or at least it would be good for us to have a copy of it. But yeah, I think it's just, Steve, from your standpoint, I know you're a new member, but this is something I would like us to kind of have maybe a conversation about, after you've been with us a little bit. I'm not going to throw this on you right now, but just in terms of like, the vision for the group and whether or not we feel like, I've noticed there's a couple of towns that have changed their name. Like after the town becomes a green community, they change their name to something else. So the committee is no longer the Green Communities Committee. It is then the Sustainability Committee or the Green Committee or whatever they want to, whatever term seems to fit. And then some don't continue to have like a working board like we do. So, just something to think about, whether or not we want to tweak our mission, if there's things we want to add to it or remove, that sort of thing.
If I could just give 2 cents to it. First off, being a newbie, Green Committee is a mouthful, but that's not a reason to change. And the other thing is that what Chris sent today was a state document, which had green communities at the top of the headline. And so I just wonder if we change our name, what does that cause? Does this cause a problem? But I guess not, based on what you said, Christina, that other communities have changed.
Right. Jamie, it would not cause, there would be the issue of the logo, I guess. That's the one thing that we have to think about. But
No, we have flexibility. It would be a matter of us floating it by the select board once we come up with a reason. And if there's any changes to our mission, they're completely open to that too, which Christina knows. She's met with the town administrator and the chair and has expressed the desire to shift focus for the committee. And so that's all open. That's all fair game. And as soon as we kind of draft it up, we just run the draft by select board, which will then add comments, send it back, and we finalize. So pretty straightforward.
Right.
yeah.
Yes, and if I may say, the idea of the title is really not so important. It's whether or not our mission is to support the Green Communities Act. That, if originally we were supposed to be supportive of that, are we confident that DPW is going to keep us in good standing and perhaps doing as much as they should? Because
that's a really good, that's a really, really, really good point about that we were put in place to help the town achieve the green communities. And are we helping the town remain a green community? And I would say our committee is not the ones in charge of maintaining our green community standard. There's no reporting. I don't receive reports from a different, the school board when they change their lighting or when they upgrade something, or when the fire department goes and buys new vehicles or has to replace something. There's nothing that comes to our committee So that we can say, okay, check that off, we did that, check that off, we did that. We don't really, we're not in charge of making sure we fulfill those. And that's never, I mean, ever since I've been on the committee, long before I was chair, that was never a part of what we had to do. So,
Well, I'm not as concerned, Christine, about whether or not we're kind of in trouble because we didn't do what we should do, so much as are we doing for Easton the best thing that we could, which is the extra part. It's the spirit of the whole thing. When you have a busy department, are they going to be worrying about, oh, I wonder what other grants we could get?
right,
Which is
right,
something that we
absolutely,
want
yes.
to do.
And that is something, yeah, that is, I think, like that part of it that you're talking about is, I think, exactly a great use of our time. That's a great thing for us to be doing. And I agree that we, but I guess what I'm just concerned of is like a little bit of confusion as to like what our role is. You know, we are not the gatekeepers to make sure that the committee, that the town keeps its designation. And so my thought is do we change our name to make it clearer what we are here to do, and then look at the mission and rewrite it in a way so that it fits the things that we want to do. I just remember, for instance, and Jamie, this is before your time, there was a conversation about the whole issue of PFAS, and we were told by our select board designee that that wasn't really part of our charge. And so I guess my concern would be is I would feel pretty strongly that that should be part of our charge, especially the education aspect of it. I would want to make sure that that was incorporated, like all those things that maybe don't fit into the tight mission statement that we have now, that we can broaden it a bit so that we have a little more flexibility to say, oh my gosh, this issue that we didn't even know about a year ago, we still can talk to people about it, or, you know, because it fits within this new mission that we have. So that's the only thing that I just want to make sure, like, I want to have a conversation about this, but I would like it when we're like, when there's 5 squares here, so we can have like a full committee, because I feel like I want to have everyone's voice involved. So nothing's going to happen before that point. So don't worry that I'm going to like, you know, I'm not yeah, I don't go behind the back, you know, I'm not going to do anything, but I think it's something I would like to think about. I've thought about it for a while. I mean, the conversation I had with Dottie was, oh my gosh, over a year ago, about more than a year ago, about changing the mission and expanding the mission a bit. So I think it's
I'll just say too, so that, you know, we don't get too derailed. It'll be important that we take a few things. We don't want mission creep to happen either. So it's important, and this is a great opportunity. I have you know, obviously there's PFAS, like there's a number of things happening at the federal level that are now going to lead down to the state level, where the state was getting out ahead of the, you know, federal requirements, and then that kind of flipped. So that's one piece. The DPW and what it does annually to make sure we maintain our status. That would be mission creep. We wouldn't necessarily be asked to be an oversight committee, but we can certainly learn what they're doing. And the town administrator is very cued in on it, because he also wants every dollar that we can possibly bring in brought in. So rather than we really explore what we can and can't do, I think some of these things we just channel immediately and vet and find out, hey, if we were to incorporate this, you know, what does it look like? So then, you know, so I think coming up with the ideas of what we want to do, and then go vet them kind of separately.
And I agree. Jamie has mentioned that we're in a state of flux, particularly about PFAS, is that, you know, the whole country is in a state of flux on that. And I suspect that what will happen, I've read through the Mass Green Communities Act, used to work in law departments, you know, this is horrible stuff sometimes to get through. It is mostly energy. They're mostly concerned, especially with solar, some wind, but mostly energy. And after the fact, now we're finding that places like Eversource and National Grid are actually, like, they're digging up roads, they're doing all kinds of things to try and get us off fossil fuel. So things are happening, and I think the state has not fully responded yet. And I think they'll also probably put PFAS under the green communities. If they're smart, they're not going to make a whole new separate act. They'll add on to green communities to address the huge PFAS problem, which is not only ours, it's everyone's.
Yeah, that'll be
And
interesting to see. That'll be interesting to see.
so
So-
I think getting an idea of our general mission, even in this state of flux,
Mhm.
I like the idea that we might be not so much of a watchdog or a whistleblower, so much as, that friendly uncle that you can rely on to give you good advice when it's necessary. And I think they're going to need it. That I think there are many changes that are coming down the pike.
Okay.
Anyway.
so-
As an aside, I read in the paper that the state of Maine and the state of Michigan are recommending that hunters who kill deer, and that's part of what they do, not eat the meat because of PFAS.
Wow.
Which is like, wow. Geez.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. That's hitting home.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
amazing. That's amazing. Well, all right. So, well, thank you guys for that input. We'll keep this conversation going when we've got a full committee in a meeting. Getting to the next item, NRT Harvest Fair recap. I'll sum it up with windy and cold, but Chris was a trooper. Holy smokes! That was so funny. First of all,
both were troopers. So
I
thank you.
cannot believe how windy it was, and it never ever stopped. Our table was bare bones because if anything was on that table, it was going away. We just really couldn't set much up. But we had a, I was pleasantly surprised how many people showed up. It definitely wasn't as busy as last year, which was like the picture perfect, beautiful fall day, but it was busy and we had a decent amount of foot traffic. Chris did a great job with her water garden demonstration and explanation. People were really interested in that. They loved hearing about native plants and what a water garden is and how you could incorporate it into your design. I had a recycling game that both kids and adults, not one single person got all of the answers. Not one single person could pick the 4 items out of the bin that were recyclable. Everybody got something wrong, which just tells you how confusing it is to recycle properly nowadays.
Including me. I got it all wrong as well.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, I purposely tried to be tricky. I was trying to make this easy. Chris, you might have gotten it right if you were there. But if you
No, I think I was half wrong because one of the gentlemen, I think he was one of your neighbors, said it. He said, "You mean to tell me that this stuff could be recycled, but we can't?" And it was either color or it was size. And I'm going like, "Sir, you hit that nail on the head."
Yeah, I know. So it was a good, it was a good day. It was freezing. It was a good day, but it was cold. And then moving on. So Stephen, just so you know, at the beginning of the year, one of the challenges. I'm sorry?
Before you move on, I really want to thank you both
Oh yeah.
for being there and weathering the conditions and meeting Steve and bringing him on board as well. So
Yeah.
thank you both, because I know the conditions were ridiculous.
Yes, it was.
I second that.
Yeah, it was worth the chill that we've got a new member. So that's awesome.
And Jamie, I am so sorry we didn't get to use your tent.
You needed a heating tent, one with walls is what you needed.
We did eat all that coffee cake though pretty quickly. So.
Down somewhere near Taunton, I think.
Yeah, the tent would have been like somewhere else. I'm so glad we didn't set a tent up. That was crazy.
Thank you both.
Okay, so next item on the agenda. So Steve, at the beginning of the year, I think one of the challenges I've found with this committee is that I mentioned earlier that sometimes there's things we want to do that maybe don't fit our mission, but even within our mission, there's so many ways we can take our committee. And sometimes I feel like we chase different things. And so what we did is we came up with 3 main focus areas for this year, where we decided to kind of concentrate. And that doesn't mean we can't do anything else, but really concentrate our thoughts and our research. So one of the items is centered around water conservation and contamination prevention. And so over the summer, we did some social media messaging and some, messaging on ECAT about when you can water your lawns, because we had such a drought and people were just not getting it in their heads that you cannot water your lawn every day. And so we tried to educate people about that. And so that's the first area. And so for this meeting, I had asked a question. There is an app that the DPW has on their web, on the Easton webpage, called Eye on Water. And I have it on my phone and I think it's pretty cool. What it is it basically is for people who have cellular water meter readers. You hook up to the Eye on Water app and you can see your daily usage. So that was the quickest thing. We were watering our lawn once a week in accordance with the rule. And I said to John, I can't even do that anymore, because you could see how much water every Monday when we watered, our water usage would go from like this down to like down for the rest of the week. And so I had a question. I love that sort of information. Like, to me, tell me how much I'm using and I'll cut it in half. Like, I want to try to conserve, but sometimes I just have no idea. And so that type of information was so helpful. So my question had been to the DPW is, I don't know if you guys get this, but when you get your electric bill, in between, they send you a little graph and it tells you if you're a good neighbor. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like if you're an energy efficient neighbor, if you use way too much, or if you're average or whatever. And I found those to be really interesting. I think it was one time I wasn't at either 1 or 2. I was in the third, like the bad group, and I was horrified. And I thought, well, that would be great if we could do something like that with the Eye on Water app. And so I had a question for the DPW about that. And unfortunately, there's not, Easton, just that cellular water meter is not installed in enough homes in Easton to be able to use that data in any way to kind of extrapolate. I thought even it might be interesting if we could have, if we could get the information from the app just on a larger scale and even like parse it out by like Northeastern versus Southeastern, who's better at saving water. But, why not? I love competition.
Don't polarize North and South any more than they already are. Oh my gosh.
But we could have, or maybe it's just like how your neighborhood is doing in general and have it compared to the average or something like that. But unfortunately, there's just not enough. There aren't enough homes with this ability at this point. I know they're slowly converting over all the different water meters, but it's going to take a while before that's in place. I don't know if you guys have tried downloading that Eye on Water app. It's kind of interesting. When you download it, unfortunately, the only way to know if you can use it is you have to download the app. And then when you put in your address, it'll tell you you can't use this app because you don't have the right meter, or it'll just pull it in. And it just populates right on my phone. Stormwater management meeting update. I contacted the DPW. They're supposed to be doing a overall stormwater management presentation to the Conservation Commission, and it was going to be in September, and I hadn't heard anything. It turns out that there was COVID in the office, and so that had to be postponed, and I have not heard of a meeting date yet. So I'll try to follow up on that just to make sure that we don't get overlooked.
Christina, is this still focus number 1 or is this focus number 2?
Focus number, oh, we're still under water conservation. So this is still under water conservation. So the idea being is that the town has to manage their stormwater because there's so many contaminants wash away and get into the waterways and into our drinking water. And so there is going to be a meeting with the DPW and the Conservation Commission to go over the plans. And my hope is if we can sit in on those meetings, maybe we can offer some information or get some information, or even come up with some ideas, look for grants, that sort of thing, things that we would have time to do that maybe the other groups don't have the time to do. I went to a meeting years ago in Cambridge that was kind of a municipal green meeting in Cambridge, and it was all about how towns are handling becoming more environmentally friendly and all of that. And there was one town that actually, and I'm not suggesting this because I know this would not go over well, but they actually levied a small tax on homeowners and on businesses to help pay for stormwater management. And it was based on how much of your, it was based on, for homes, they took like an average, how much is your driveway? Because your driveway is not permeable, right? So the water runs off your driveway. So they came up with some kind of metric. But if you were a business, and let's say you decided, I'm going to pave every inch around my building, well, then all the water's running off and going into the drainage instead of going into the ground. And so that town was trying to come up with ways to encourage people to help retain stormwater, not let it just wash away. And they did this. And then also they wanted to be able to pay for upgrades in the town. So they put a small tax on all the homes, which again, I mentioned, I'm not suggesting we do that, but it is an interesting way to look at it. And so that's the meeting I'd like to try to get us involved in, or at least see the report. And then Chris, the last thing is the Quessett House Water Garden Project. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or
Okay, I will in one moment. And I had a question. When you said that the stormwater management meeting is DPW or the water department?
it's well, the water department's within DPW.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
The water
explain that one. Okay, now regarding the rain gardens, for Steve's benefit, I have several hats that I wear, and one of them is that I'm also a master gardener, and we've just gotten the Quessett House, which is essentially the library as the owner, because they have leased the Quessett House plus all of its property for 100 years. So they're technically the owner. So the library has approved it. The Master Gardener Association has approved it. And now the Italianate garden from the Quessett House is now a Master Gardener site. And this fall, I twisted arms so that we could get in this year. And we had 4 approved meetings that are approved, and we'll have 2 more. Now, why this is important is that Master Gardeners is not into removing a lot of invasives, and we've got a lot of invasives over there next to the library, and it's a huge problem. But what the invasives are filling is a brook that leads into the Quessett Brook and Shovel Pond. So this would be a perfect site for a rain garden. So this is where I'm trying to get all of my different hats. Another hat that I have is with Appalachian Mountain Club. I'm on for the Southeast chapter on their conservation and trails committees. And they often have, when I was in Boston, we did a lot of invasive work so that they would have a clearance day for invasives and so on. So with them working on getting the invasives out, and perhaps the Master Gardeners then being able to adopt this as part of the Italianate garden, this would be a perfect place to try and get a rain garden demo. What really surprised me at the Harvest Fair was how many men were so interested in the rain gardens and the idea of getting rid of their lawns and being able to put in something that will help with water conservation and everything. So I think that there's a lot of interest there. I do want to, not have this take 3 years, but maybe a year, that would be great. And get those invasives out. If we, the library is already interested in the idea that they would have a model rain garden right next to the library.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
so Steve, so this project is not part of the Green Communities Committee per se. I mean, it is because Chris is involved in it, but it would serve as a great model for us to point to, because I know that Easton has such a high water table that when it does rain, I mean, we haven't had a lot of rain in this past year, but flooding is always an issue. And so the idea would be to use this as an example, and that use it as a way to maybe talk to either greenskeepers or the town and show them how they might be able to convert areas that just normally just flood all the time into gardens, and or areas that where the water just runs off and gets into the stormwater again, or goes
or
away.
paving areas that used to collect water and paving them so that now they run into the Taunton River.
Yeah.
That doesn't help us either.
So that's where that stands. So yeah, so I like hearing about it. I think it's interesting. And
I love the library piece, because you think of all the children, including my own, that we parade through there, and then they go home and tell their parents, and that's how initiatives get started. The kids go home.
Well,
and like,
you
Mom,
think
Dad,
about it, it would be great. It would be great to incorporate like an educational piece. I remember when my kids were little, there's a little path by Stonehill College, right by the little that little gosh, what do you call it? That little not a gazebo, it's a little gosh, I went to a Catholic college. You'd think I'd remember the name of it. Anyway, it's a little religious structure on the side. What?
Shrine.
Yeah, it's kind of a shrine, but it's got a better name. Anyway, behind there's a little trail, and it's the cutest thing. It's very short, but they have like little markers along the way. So I would take the kids back there when they were little. I'd read them, like it would say, here's a blah, blah. But it'd be great to have something, because it's the library, it'd be great to have like little markers all over the place that tell you, these are the flies, this is what the butterflies do. But then also explain, here's a rain garden. Why do we have a rain garden? This is why. And then they go home and they say, Mom, that spot in our yard that's muddy all the time, or something like that. Be great.
And naming the plants so that people know what to plant there.
Yeah, that would be great.
I love it.
All right, cool. All right, I'm going to move on to the next line item, which is recycling and waste management. Steve, you will quickly outgun me on this one because you've had all this background on recycling. But one of the things we did this summer was a recycling demo at the town pool. And I went there with my daughter, and I haven't had a chance to talk to everybody because we didn't have a meeting in September, but it was at the end of August. It was the last weekend the town pool was open. I worked with the health department to have a presence there, and we had a craft, and we had some. We used recycled material to have a craft. Chris gave me a bunch of seeds, and so we used recycled bottles and made little gardens that people could bring home. And we also did a recycling game where I got people to kind of sort things and made little cards, and they had to sort them into the right pile. And it was really cute. I think it went over pretty well. I mean, it was a nice day on a Saturday, so there was decent traffic. My favorite was the 20-something-year-old young man that came over and said, I want to play. And so we had him go through I was like, all right, I've really made this game for like 10-year-olds, but sure. But I think it's like one of those things that I think with like the recycling, it's us who have to like figure out where things go. And so even though it's played like a game, I think for adults it makes sense because they're the ones doing a lot of the recycling, and so most people want to do the right thing in that sense. So that was a really nice day. Glad I did it. Maybe next summer we do it a little more often. They have a new craft tent that they have been staffing all summer. And so there would be an opportunity, I'm sure, if we wanted to go and do anything. It's, obviously targeting the kids.
You could also grab, that the town maintains the contamination rate. We have to stay below a certain percentage. Otherwise we get charged by waste management. So
Right.
that number, I believe, is available quarterly, if not more frequently.
Do you know where you get that number? Because I've often wondered, I would love, again, me with the like the pie in the sky ideas, but I would love that. I had this idea that, like sometimes when you're doing a fundraiser and you've got the thermometer and you're painting it in, it'd be great to have something somewhere in town where people could see, oh no, the recycling rate is, because I know so we're supposed to have, I think it's less than 11%. I think 11% sounds right. I could be wrong. So of our recycling, 11% can be wrong, the wrong products, before we start getting charged to dispose of it. So when people, bag their recycling, they just throw all that away. When people throw away black plastic, when people throw away, kids' tables and chairs that are made of plastic but can't be recycled, all of that goes towards the percent of trash that's mixed in with the recycling. And once we hit a certain percentage, then that becomes money that we have to pay the recycling people back.
It's called the contamination rate. So
Yeah.
we can get that. Let me chase that down.
Okay, that'd be great. Because I think that'd be really interesting for people to know. And I think then maybe because then what happens is after, a year of high contamination rates, then our rates go up because the town's not going to eat that overage time and time again. So then our rates start creeping up more and more. So,
and you said something, Christina, about where does that number come from? I'm assuming it's coming from the recycler, the people.
It's got to be coming, I think, from waste management. But
it's from
the other thing is the 11% essentially a rejection rate? That how much of like is it a single person's trash, which it used to be that you had a sign put on your trash that we're not going to take this. But now is that rejection happening from an entire truck?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think now it's trucks more likely will get it rejected because there's no, so that sticker, that used to be the program too, like the drivers would go around with stickers. And if they opened up the bin and saw everything bagged, they would close it, put a big sticker on it, the sticker of shame, and then drive away, and your recycling would sit there. But now everything's automated. So nobody's looking inside the barrels. They're just dumping it in.
This means if one neighbor out of 100 is throwing away black plastic, if it all gets rejected, holy cow.
So just one more piece is that there's now cameras. So when they
dump, they can see
film everything going in. So people are still getting notices when they
are they? Okay.
have a high contamination rate. So yeah.
That's good.
That is good. Okay, that's good to know.
Can I jump in here at this point?
Yes, of course.
I was wondering if I could have the advantage of meeting with the dumpsters to understand a lot of the details that you just talked about. That the black plastic, and there's probably 1,000 different things. So if I could, I wonder if that's possible. I mean, I don't know if that goes outside of.
No, A+. I think, sometimes this is, stories get passed on and we're not always very sure. I think, Steve, what you suggest would be great, that we get the real factual.
Anytime is good for me.
So you want to meet with, I'm sorry, I just missed.
The people that pick up our trash.
You want to meet with waste management? Have a conversation.
Go to their facility so I can see exactly what they're talking about. I mean, it's one thing for you to say, well, we don't take black plastic. I mean, but what does that mean? I mean.
I think we start here, Christina, which is probably where you're going, which is there is a lot of information we can provide you already. Yeah. And one of the reasons that black plastic is that it doesn't get picked up on the scanner. So they can't, right? They can't properly segregate it if it's a polypropylene versus a polyethylene versus in what number it is. So that's the problem with black. But then we have a whole bunch of other information. I think if we start there, and then if you want to continue the education, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I
that's,
think Steve's idea is very important because if there is black plastic that is found later on, if they find it later on, do they reject 5 trucks? Okay, what happens, really by
I just think
being
it
able
goes,
for him
I
to
think,
see.
yeah, I think it ends up being, it becomes a, I don't think it, I'm not sure black plastic would reject a truck. I think a truckload of, mattresses or bagged recyclables might get the whole truck rejected. But I think that certainly if they have to, after they've sifted through all the stuff that can't be recycled, if they have to then bring in 3 trucks just to get rid of the trash that was in the recycling, someone has to pay for those trucks to come pick up the trash that was delivered to recycle.
I just use black plastic as a.
Yeah,
as one
Steve,
example.
Steve, I'll send you some of the information I have because
Okay.
there's some really good resources that are just to give you like some of the basic information. And then from there, if you want to talk to someone either at the DPW
Okay,
to see if
that's
you want
fine.
to contact the
That's a
management.
starting, yeah, that's a
I think
starting
a
point.
site visit, I honestly feel a site visit is very different from having any number of reports, information, and so on. Actually seeing it in action is something else. And on the other hand, speaking to DPW first, whoever it is that hired these people it would be a very important step, to make sure that they don't feel that we're going outside them, but that we're actually helping them and supporting them. So doing both, seeing DPW and essentially getting the names and so on of who the contractors are. If there's more than one, perhaps there is more than
Well,
one.
there's many different trash pickups in town. There is one through the town, and that's basically who we talk about. I mean, because it's just,
We only contract with one, Chris.
yeah, we've only contracted
Thank
with
you.
one pickup. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and the other contractors, that's not our business. Our business
Right.
is the town of Easton.
Yeah.
And, we are handling our trash in a certain way, and we're recommending that it be handled in a certain way. And it then will depend on this contractor and how we might better serve their needs. This is another thing is that Christina knows about the recycling of shredded waste is such a no-no. To actually see, which Steve would see the machinery and everything and realize, where they're having problems. Maybe there are even more problems than we know of. But I think a site visit would be fabulous.
And just one other point on the recycling, I've been bombarded by Staples, of all people, about recycling your hardware. And I just, hopefully you can see it, and maybe you can't, it's a charger. And I happened to bring this to Staples and say, "Will you recycle this?" They said, "Yeah, and we'll give you $5. I said, "What?" Okay.
Wow.
So I said, "Fine, and $5 every month for everything that I bring in. They'll give me and I'm a reward customer. They'll give me a $5 check."
Well,
And I
I have
got
2 laptops downstairs.
everybody has these little doohickeys, and I don't even know what this is. But everybody has a junk drawer or a basket or bucket or whatever.
How about a room?
Yeah, right. Well, I had 2 boys who were the geeks, and so we have a lot of these. But what I'm thinking that if somehow we could make people aware, Easton people aware of this, I mean, yeah, give me $5, but more importantly, we don't throw it into the waste stream.
Right.
Thank you. I'm a
Also-
rewards customer and I'll do that.
I just want to mention that if you guys get the chance to, if you haven't seen it already, but there is a new state law about not being allowed to throw away textiles and mattresses, which I think mattresses has not been something that could be thrown away anyway. But the textiles, there's now a new program. I know that the town just put a note on Facebook about it, about how you can have any textiles, clothing, sheets, towels, any of that stuff, because you're not allowed to put it in your trash anymore.
Yep, you just throw it in the pink bag now and put it on your,
No, the pink bag system's gone.
oh, it is.
Pink bag is gone. I was sad to find that out as I threw pink bags outside like for way too long until I found out. No
Yep.
more pink bags. It is a brand new program. You'd still have to make an appointment. But yeah, I'll find that Facebook page post and send it to you guys.
But you can bag it up as trash, yes?
You can't throw it in your trash anymore.
What textiles, what do you do with a textile then?
You have to call a number to have it specially picked up, or you can drop them. All the schools have drop-off boxes for textiles. It actually makes money for the schools. It's probably by pound. So I think I read today, somebody was saying that one of the schools, their bin was full, and someone said, well, they come every Thursday to pick it up. So I'm pretty sure almost every school has one of those like textile recycling bins. And
Okay, Christina, I want to make this clear. Can you throw it when I talked about trash? I didn't mean recycle. Your bag.
I do not believe you can put it in your trash. I'll check that again, but I'm pretty sure the state law said no, not in your trash, because you never really could recycle clothing. So I'm pretty sure you can't put it in your trash anymore.
Correct. They do not want us throwing textiles in the trash.
Yeah.
But you can bring it to one of the Easton schools that has a drop off.
Yeah, the Easton schools, I don't know if every Easton school, like I'm not sure like where the Parkview complex is, if every individual school does, but I'm pretty sure the elementary schools all have one of these bins, because someone, and I think our Richardson Olmsted, I believe they have one too, which is, I haven't seen it because I was doing the pink bag thing, and now my basement's just full of like bags that I have to I have to do this other thing or bring it to the school. But they, but yeah, if you know, it'd be nice. It's a good way to support the schools because they get the money for the clothing.
Do you know what? I see that being a horrible problem, that if there's nothing you can do with it other than find one of these centers, that people are going to be overwhelming Salvation Army and Goodwill with things that they do otherwise throw out.
Right. I mean, it is tricky. I mean, I think about my mom who's almost 80 and she's not online at all. I mean, she does have a cell phone. We got her on a cell phone, but like she would have no way of knowing this information or how to schedule a pickup.
On the Goodwill side is that they're into the program, right? So they are recycling a ton, because we know that not everything we drop off is either wanted or sellable.
Yeah.
And so they have a pretty robust program now, and I think it's going to work out fine. It's taking a lot of a lot of textiles out of the landfills, which is the goal.
Okay, so I'm going to move on because we're past 8, and I don't want to scare anybody for our first meeting going really long. Energy savings. Chris, I have to confirm with you on this one. The 220. So in 2020, Steve, just to kind of give you a quick top line, I had an intern from the that worked under the former environmental planner for the town. He was an intern for the planning department. He came to me and said that he wanted to put together a solar plan for the town as part of his University of Massachusetts at Boston senior thesis, I believe. And so he put together a document, which Chris, you have a copy of. I think everyone has a copy of it by now. But he was never really able to like completely finish it because it was 2020, spring of 2020. His school year kind of got screwed up. His time at the planning department got screwed up because of COVID. And so he kind of put together what he had and he delivered it to the planning department. And my thought is it's probably in a drawer somewhere, because in the meantime, we had COVID, and then we had a switch in environmental planners. And so we have a new environmental planner. And my thought was, is there a way to, could we look at this again and figure out, is it usable? Can we adopt any of it? Is it a document that can be worked on and flushed out so that it can be used by the town? I don't remember where we left this, Chris. I know you had some really good thoughts about it. Were you going to talk to Jennifer Carlino, environmental planning?
I wasn't, but I could. If that's the thought, if you also felt it pretty much, he ended it was incomplete,
Yeah.
but
Which he
it was
knew.
a useful start.
Yeah.
It was a useful start. For the others in the group, Christina knows that Jennifer Carlino was the conservation head in Norton. And I ran across her name because I'm also a plant conservation volunteer, and she had done 2 of the surveys that I was following up on. And one of the things that she happened to mention on one of them was that she wasn't being very concerned about overgrowth of an invasive species on the spot because it was keeping all-terrain vehicles out of the area. So anyway, Jennifer is very much into natural conservation, and I imagine that it's going to be something that, as she comes on board, she's only been there for a year, that she would think positively about. So
I don't mind.
I
I don't
don't-
mind reaching out to her. I didn't know. I thought maybe you guys had a relationship before. I don't mind reaching out to her and just because I'm the one that talked to my Matthew, so maybe it makes more sense for me just to call her because I can explain how this all happened.
The fact that I have actually had contact with her,
have,
and
okay.
this is, yeah, I emailed her about something about the surveys that she did, and had wanted to follow up. She decided not to come on the survey with us, but I do feel like I've opened the door at least, and
Okay.
say, at least as an introduction for you then to talk to her later,
Great.
Christine.
That'd be great.
I think just asking her casually, that we came across this report in our committee, and we're wondering whether, what were your thoughts on it? Did you want to follow up on it?
She may not even know it exists. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I would like to have it at least. I know he put a lot of time into it. He was a great guy. He is a great guy. I mean, he's working somewhere. He graduated and he's off working. But it would be great to be able to at least, not
For him
let
to know that it
let-
got followed up. You
Yeah.
put a lot of work into this kind of thing, and you could tell
Yeah.
he did do a lot of stuff, and he put heart and soul into this. I think it was sad that because of COVID it just got dropped.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of the thesis, of course, is good, and even if he didn't get far enough, somebody should get far enough with it.
Right. And then the second point under energy savings is, Jamie, you mentioned that you had a conversation with Connor about Easton's community choice power supply program, and maybe we can help educate the public about that. I've been, what I would like to do is I might want to have a conversation with Connor just so I understand it a little bit better. I did print out a document. Where is it? It's the public notice about the whole consumer choice, community choice power supply program, where we can actually change our power to wind power through a special program. And I think this is a really good time to let people know what their options are. I've been seeing a lot of really kind of scary news articles. Probably some of them are a bit sensational, but some of them are saying, our heating bills are going to be X percentage higher this upcoming year. And so I think this is a really good time to be talking to people about what can they do to keep their energy usage down and also keep their energy costs down. And so, Jamie, do you see? Oh, Jamie, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Well, I think my first time, but I was going to say, just to talk to Connor, he's got a 4-day window that I know about. It is right after town meeting. So town meeting is November 14th. If you were available to talk to him the 15th through the 18th, we could set that up.
Great. I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. I think it's a little confusing. And also, I believe that when the program was put in place, there was like a grace period where the rate would be a certain rate and then that expires. I just want to understand what happens after that rate expires, like how high can it go? And, just so we don't convince people like this is such a great idea, do it, the rates are lower. And then in a year, they're like, what happened to our rates? So I just want to make sure I understand it.
Christina, there's one more energy thing that I don't want to introduce new business, but it's come up several times for me. And that is that people who are living in apartment complexes and condos very often are not able to have electric vehicles because they are not being provided with outside electric in order to charge their cars at night. So I wondered whether we wanted to talk about whether the town had a stance on this, that if you have an apartment complex that you need to be providing for people with electric vehicles.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Jamie, do you know, is there a list somewhere of all the charging stations in Easton? I think there is.
And there's
No,
no
this
brought
be
on.
private.
So that's actually an active conversation right now because there's some negotiations going on.
Right.
I've got a few notes of things I'm going to follow up on. That'll be one of them. So
Okay.
When I was at my timeshare this summer, I was able to charge our car because they had an outside outlet. Most places do, that in order to plug in your lawnmower or whatever you're plugging in, there are outside outlets. But one of my mentees, a master gardener, told me that his condo association has no ability. There are no external outlets that he would be able to plug into, and he can't have an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I would imagine maybe it has to be, maybe it would be have to do with the size. I could see why that would be a big issue if you have an electric vehicle to be able to charge
But
it.
there's no if on that. If
Yeah.
all of Europe is going off of motorized vehicles by 2032, certainly electric vehicles are the present.
Mhm.
They're the future. And the idea that you would not be able to live in communal living of some sort where it's apartments and so on
Mhm.
without being able to plug in your car, that's a pretty serious thing.
All right, so we'll follow up on the next meeting, Jamie. Jamie, I'll give you a little bit of time to.
I've got
more
the
on that.
notes down. Yep.
Moving on to the next one, I'm going to try to go through the next few kind of quickly, only because this is just a quick overview of this. Grants. So Rupsha had started a document listing available grants. This is something that's come up in our conversations tonight. One of the things I think we could be really helpful in providing the different departments and boards and organizations in town is just an ongoing, maybe quarterly updated list of grants that would be great for anything that they're doing that is in this, environmental / green sector, so that people are aware, because I think, I see grants that come across my desk. Sometimes they're like one-offs that a company is doing something that the town couldn't do, but maybe another group could take advantage of. And I'm just envisioning a document where, the grants are listed, a brief description of them, typical award or maybe a range of dollar amounts, deadlines, and maybe a few bullet points, just something very quick and easy so people could look through it and say, oh my gosh, I was trying to get money to do this project and here's a grant that I could possibly apply for. So Rupsha has that document right now. I will follow up with her on that. But I think that'd be very useful. And I think it's a perfect thing for us to be handling that. As Chris said, a lot of other departments, they have many, many, many other things they have to deal with. And this could be a great thing for us.
Yeah. I think it's very important that we get that document, whatever she has.
Yes, we will. Yep. A couple public events coming up. I just want to mention.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes,
Sorry.
of course you can.
this, what you just talked about, and then I'm sure there's 100 other different things. Does the committee have a website that you could incorporate those?
So
types of-
not until they're really public. So we do have a website. It's under the town website. So if you go to the town of Easton, I think it's boards and committees, you'll find Green Communities. And we have a list of a lot of things that we're telling people, like different sites we tell people about and things like that, and any documents that we've had put together. But this grant is the grant document right now is just a draft. So it's not made public anywhere. It's just
No, but I see where Steve is going with this, and I think it's a good idea because in other organizations that I work with, committees will have, very often it's a Google group where you can share documents and have things so that, you know, we're not all talking about different things that, especially the long ones, you know, that
Jamie,
instead of
what
our
does
have a copy,
how's
all of
So here's
to be
the thing that we have to be careful with. So Jamie, I assume if we had some kind of like, we could share like the problem, I'm not sure how this would work with open meeting laws, because we cannot have an outside group where we talk amongst ourselves. So for instance,
So we can't really use what you're talking about is like, yeah, the Google.
as a closed group, we can't do that.
Yeah, so for open meeting laws, it would have to be a document that we spoke to, you know, and then someone updated.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like, Steve, I can send you a copy. When I get it from Rupsha, I can send it to you to look at, so you can see kind of what she was putting together. But, and then you and I can have a conversation about it. If you have questions about it or whatever, that's fine. But we can't have the four of
Yeah,
us.
but
can't
this is
send
something
off.
that we should all be able to have access to, you know.
Yeah,
that
sure.
we
Well, I
all
think
want to
so.
be
I
able
mean,
to
everyone will
add
have,
to it,
I don't want
so.
everyone to have access to it. I mean, well, we can decide that. I mean, everyone will have access to it when it's complete. But as she's working on it, if she's actively working on it, I don't know that that everyone should be working on it with her. That would, I think, be kind of confusing.
But the thing is, like you said, that you have, you're coming across documents and so on. If we had some kind of a list where we could all be adding to it, and, you know, instead of having one person
So-
trying to do this perfect document,
Well, what
to
I
have
would
a
say is if you
list
can't,
of what's like
so
news.
when
This
I've
is
come
the-
across grants, I've emailed her. Like if I see a grant comes across my desk, I email it, hey, Rupsha, maybe add this to the document. And then she adds it to the document. So that's what I've been doing, because that way I'm just emailing her. I'm not letting everybody else know. And so.
Okay, but where it stands is that, so far as we know, nothing on grants has ever come from our committee to one of the departments, right? So instead of having something perfect and finished, to have what we have now and updating that all the time, and having a traffic cop who then will send to the appropriate department, these are upcoming soon. We think you might be interested in that, and doing this quarterly, that will work. But having one complete finalized document, it's going to change
No, that's what
constantly.
I said earlier, that it would be a quarterly thing. It would be updated. So it's just, I don't think, I don't know if you remember, but the meeting where she presented the document, I thought it needed a few more columns. I have not seen any updates to it. So I don't think it was able to be presented yet. So even though.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, so I think until that, I don't need it to be, I don't think it even makes sense to have a document that we say, you know, boom, it's done, let's publish it and go. I think this has to be a working document that's updated and reissued maybe quarterly. I mean, I think it will depend on what we find. Like we might say quarterly is too much or it's not enough. You know, some people may want to see it more often. Some people might be like, yeah, thanks, once a year is fine. You know, I think because it's a new thing, we kind of have to see how it evolves, but I don't want to issue it until all those changes are made. And I haven't seen those changes made yet. So that's the only thing I'm waiting on. And I
But I
think,
think rather than a verbal text kind of a document, to think of it in terms of a spreadsheet,
Mhm.
that, you know, column A is who's giving the money,
That's
column
that's
B,
how she set it up. She set it
how
up like
much?
a spreadsheet. Yeah, it was a spreadsheet. I just needed, I think it needed a little more information on it. And so once we have that, then we can say, okay, great, we have at least, 20 grants that we can submit, we can send to everybody and let them know that this is going to be something that we work on and continue to send out. And then Jamie, I don't know, or maybe that's something that can even live on our website. I mean, I don't think it's proprietary, right? I mean, I don't see, there'd be nothing, could be something that's just a link that if, current grants, and then we could go on and update it as we find it. And
The
add
negative
things
thing
to it.
about that, if it's on our website and it's got full public access, is that other towns can then mine the work that we did and go for the same grants.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, I don't have that big of a problem. I mean, I find if it could be useful, I mean, I'd be
I
surprised.
wouldn't be so concerned about that either. I think that any town that's, eligible and meets.
I mean,
those
I'll say
things.
that like when I was doing the plastic bag, when we were putting together the information from the plastic bag ban, I mean, I got so much information from other towns, published stuff, and Mansfield sent me everything they had. So I think it's just, I don't,
You weren't competing for the same funds.
yeah, but I mean, I think if we have a good grant reason, I think we'll get the money if it's a good idea. I don't know.
Well, I would say one thing, if another town was doing that and I had access to it, I'd be over there in a shot and just cull through exactly what we could get.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Since I'm the fellow that stirred the pot here, I mean, all I was asking is that very vanilla. Here's grant number 47-3, and maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't apply, but at least it's listed. That's all. And as well as the annual report from the DPW, that should be listed. I don't know how to incorporate it. Okay, this is way beyond my means. But if we have a site, a website that has information on it, it gives us more credibility.
so we are not allowed to have a separate website or a Facebook page.
All right, make it part of the town. I mean, it's a subsection, that's all.
So the DPW has a subsection that's their green communities information, and it does link to our page. That's why it's a little confusing. And then our page has a lot of information on it as well. I don't know that they have the annual report listed. I don't know if that's.
They do not. I looked for it.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if I would assume then that it does not need to be made public knowledge, right? I mean, if it was,
But there were some previous ones.
if it had to be public knowledge, then it would be up there because it would have been a rule. So.
Jamie, is there a listing of the grants that the town has gotten?
That's somewhere. Annual report, maybe?
Yeah, I would have to research that. I'm not sure.
Because this is what surprised me looking at other towns, how many different departments would have different kind of grants and everything. And I imagine at a point it gets kind of confusing. What do we have? And did we meet the metrics, the things that we were supposed to do?
So, okay, I'm going to wrap this up. We have a couple of public events I just want to make everyone aware of. November 14th is the Easton Special Town Meeting. That is, if you guys can make it, it's at usually 7 o'clock at the high school. It's just, civic duty kind of thing. And they can be a grand old time. We talked about possibly doing a resource fair with the health department. That is, I have not heard back from Kristen Kennedy. I do need to get in touch with her about that. And then possibly, just looking at things that might align with our mission is being involved in the June 2023 Pride Festival that they did last year. Harvest Fair, obviously next fall, and again, maybe we do something with the town pool again. Just things I just want to keep on our radar. And then finally, the Welcome to Green Easton Future project. This would be a booklet that we would put together, or maybe it's a booklet that lives online that we link to on our site that would be an overview of kind of all the resources that we have. Steve, this might be more in line of what you're thinking in terms of having, and this would be for people who come to Easton who want to understand kind of like, you know, what's out there, what kind of programs can I apply for Save Energy, you know, where do I get information on recycling? Because we're a town department, we can't recommend businesses. So for instance, we can give general information on, say, composting, but we can't say use this company unless it was a town, like if the town brought in composting, then we could talk about the town program. But there's certain things that we can and can't do in terms of what we can promote. And I see we have, so before I move on to public participation, is there anything else anyone wants to add?
I want to know about the booklet project. Who is handling that?
Well, that was sort of, Robin was doing part of it. I never did see anything from Rupsha, so I don't really know that she's going to participate in that. So, so yeah, that was just tabled because we had so many other things going on.
So do we have anything from Robin that she may have a draft or
She did send me some information. Unfortunately, she did have a lot of businesses listed in it, which we can't promote individual businesses. So I'll have to go through that and kind of pull out the stuff that we can't use. And it was more of a list. I'd like it to be a little more conversational, like a little bit more, I don't know, user friendly and have a little bit of verbiage, which I can do. It's just, you know.
So would you say that you're essentially have taken on managing the booklet and then we'll see something that we can all comment on? Is
at
that
some point, yes. Right now it's a future project.
okay?
Future project, yes. It's on my wish list. How's that? So yeah, so we have two attendees, Carolyn McCafferty, who is just viewing to get some information about what our committee is like. And then I see someone, Joe Borman, is on as an attendee as well. Before we close the meeting, if anyone wants to say something, I believe you can send a message to me. This is where I'm not really sure.
Yeah, in the Q&A,
Oh, let me see. Do I have any questions?
there's
Q&A.
a participant.
I have no open questions. So,
Yay.
oh, they answered. Oh, wait, you answered. Oh, thank you, Jean.
Yeah.
Such a great, great moderator here. I'm like, oh yeah, there's questions. Shoot. All right.
Thank you to Carolyn for that. These meetings don't normally go a half hour over, so this is a little unusual. And thanks for still sticking with us.
I know. Thank you, guys. So before I'm going to ask someone if they could call close of the meeting, adjourn the meeting at 8:29.
Yeah, so moved. Stebbins.
Can I get a second?
I second Atkinson.
Great. Okay, so Refford, yes.
Atkinson, yes.
Brown, yes.
All right. And you said Stebbins, yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording.
Recording stopped.
Okay.
The recording has stopped.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. And
Thank you.
Steve, do you want to be Steve or Steven?
Steve is fine.
Steve is fine. Okay, perfect. Thank you
My
very
mother
much.
called me Steven. That's about it.
I only call you Steven when I'm mad.
That's right, exactly. Thank you for being so welcoming. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you know, if I have any documents that I think would be useful, I'll send them along to you just so you have kind of some background. I know there's a lot. You might be familiar with Documents on Demand, where you can look at our old minutes and things like that. I mean, I guess if you really want something to read, that'll give you some information on stuff from the past. There's also annual reports, but I'm around if you ever have any questions and want to ask, you know, like whatever happened to this or whatever. You know, there's a lot.
Steve, if your social life is really hurting, you can go watch all the videos of the prior meetings.
Oh my God. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, very nice meeting you. I got to run, folks. Have a great night.
All right, good night,
Right.
everybody. Take
Enjoy
care.
the night.
Oh, wait, do I have a Q&A? Well, I got a Q and
Well, you know what?
A.
That was Carolyn. Just I had thanked her for coming out. And she said, thank you. This is very informative.
Okay, great. All right, awesome.
All right.
All
See you
right,
again.
bye. Bye, everybody.